Hi, fourth grade friends. How are you guys? Miss Coach here. And before we left school, we were reading The Sea of Monsters. So we're going to pick up on, let's see, we'll reread part of a chapter so that you guys can catch up. But where we left off was all of the Annabeth and Percy were getting signed in with a lady with a clipboard that looked like a flight attendant. They were at like a resort, and it looks like a woman who's some kind of witch was turning Percy into something. So let's see. He took a drink. Now Percy, Cece chided. It was Cece. The hardest part of the makeover process is giving up control. You have to decide, do you want to trust your judgment about what you should be or my judgment? My throat felt dry. I heard myself say, your judgment. Cece smiled and handed me the glass. I lifted it to my lips. It tasted just like it looked, like a strawberry milkshake. Almost immediately, a warm feeling spread through my gut. Pleasant at first, then painfully hot, searing, as if the mixture were coming to a boil inside of me. I doubled over and dropped the cup. What's happening? Don't worry, Percy, Cece said. The pain will pass. Look, as I promised, immediate results. Something was horribly wrong. The curtain dropped away, and in the mirror I saw my hands shriveling, curling, growing long, delicate claws. Fur sprouted on my face, under my shirt, and in every uncomfortable place you can imagine. My teeth felt too heavy in my mouth. My clothes were getting too big, or Cece was getting too tall. No, I was shrinking. In one awful flash, I sank into a cavern of dark cloth. I was buried in my own shirt. I tried to run, but hands grabbed me, hands as big as I was. I tried to scream for help, but all that came out of my mouth was, read, read, read. The giant hand squeezed me around the middle, lifting me into the air. I struggled and kicked with legs and arms that seemed much too stubby, and then I was staring horrified into the enormous face of Cece. Perfect, her voice boomed. I squirmed in alarm, but she only tightened her grip around my furry belly. See, Percy, you've unlocked your true self. She held me up to the mirror, and what I saw made me scream in terror. Read, read! There was Cece, beautiful and smiling, holding a fluffy, buck-toothed creature with tiny claws and white and orange fur. When I twisted, so did the furry critter in the mirror. I was a guinea pig? A guinea pig, Cece said. Lovely, aren't you? Men are pigs, Percy Jackson. I used to turn them into real pigs, but they were so smelly and large and difficult to keep. Not much different than they were before, really. Guinea pigs are much more convenient. Now come, meet the other men. Read! I protested, trying to scratch her, but Cece squeezed me too tight and I almost blacked out. None of that, little one, she scolded, or I'll feed you to the owls. Go into the cage like a good little pet. Tomorrow, if you behave, you'll be on your way. There's always a classroom in need of a new guinea pig. My mind was racing as fast as my little tiny heart. I needed to get back to my clothes, which were lying in a heap on the floor. If I could do that, I could get Riptide out of my pocket and what? I can't uncap the pen. Even if I did, I can't hold a sword. I squirmed helplessly as Cece brought me over to the guinea pig cage and opened the door. Meet my discipline problems, Percy, she warned. They'll never make good classroom pets, but they might teach you some manners. Most of them have been in this cage for 300 years. If you don't want to stay with them permanently, I suggest you... Annabeth's voice then called, Miss Cece? Cece cursed in ancient Greek. She plopped me into the cage and closed the door. I squealed and clawed at the bars, but it was no good. I watched as Cece hurriedly kicked my clothes under the loom just as Annabeth came in. I almost didn't recognize her. She was wearing a sleeveless dress like Cece's, only white. Her blonde hair was newly washed and combed and braided with gold. Worst of all, she was wearing makeup, which I never thought Annabeth would be caught dead in. I mean, she looked really good. Really good. I probably would have been tongue-tied if I could have said anything except, reet, reet, reet. There was also something totally wrong about it. It just wasn't Annabeth. She looked around the room and frowned. Where's Percy? I squealed up a storm, but she didn't seem to hear me. Cece smiled. He's having one of our treatments, my dear. Not to worry. You look wonderful. What did you think of your tour? Annabeth's eyes brightened. Your library's amazing. Yes, indeed, Cece said. The best knowledge of the past 3 millennia. Anything you want to study, anything you want to be, my dear. An architect? Pah, Cece said. Yes, you, my dear, have the makings of a sorceress, though, like me. Annabeth took a step back. A sorceress? Yes, my dear. Cece held up her hand. A flame appeared in her palm and danced across her fingertips. My mother is Hesate, the goddess of magic. I know a daughter of Athena when I see one. We're not so different, you and I. We both seek knowledge. We both admire greatness. Neither of us needs to stand in the shadow of great men. I don't understand. Again, I squealed my best, trying to get Annabeth's attention, but she either couldn't hear me or didn't think the noises were important. Meanwhile, the other guinea pigs were emerging from their hutch to check me out. I didn't think it was possible for guinea pigs to look mean, but these did. There were half a dozen with dirty fur and cracked teeth and beady red eyes. They were covered with shavings and smelled like they really had been in there for 300 years, without getting their cage cleaned. Stay with me, Cece. Stay with me, Cece was telling Annabeth. Study with me. You can join our staff, become a sorceress. Learn to bend others to your will. You will become immortal. But you're too intelligent, my dear, Cece said. You know better than to trust that silly camp for heroes. How many great female half-blood heroes can you name? Atalanta? Amelia Earhart? Men get all the glory. Cece closed her fist and extinguished the magic flame. The only way to power for women is sorcery. Medea, Calypso, now there were powerful women. And me, of course, the greatest of all. You, Cece. Cirque. Yes, my dear. Annabeth backed up and Cirque laughed. You need not worry. I mean you no harm. What have you done to Percy? Only helped him realize his true form. Annabeth scanned the room. Finally, she saw the cage. And me scratching at the bars. All the other guinea pigs crowding around me. Her eyes went wide. Forget him, Cirque said. Join me and learn the ways of sorcery. But your friend will be well cared for. He'll be shipped to a wonderful new home on the mainland. The kindergartners will adore him. Meanwhile, you'll be wise and powerful. You'll have all you ever wanted. Annabeth was still staring at me, but she had a dreamy expression on her face. She looked the same way I had when Cirque enchanted me into drinking the guinea pig milkshake. I squealed and scratched, trying to warn her to snap out of it, but I was absolutely powerless. Let me think about it, Annabeth murmured. Just give me a minute to be alone, to say goodbye. Of course, my dear, Cirque cooed. 1 minute. Oh, and you have absolute privacy. She waved her hand and iron bars slammed down over the windows. She swept out of the room and I heard the locks on the door click shut behind her. The dreamy look melted off Annabeth's face. She rushed over to my cage. All right, which one is you? I squealed, but so did all the other guinea pigs. Annabeth looked desperate. She scanned the room and spotted the cuff of my jeans sticking out from under the loom. Yes! She rushed over and rummaged through my pockets. But instead of bringing out Riptide, she found the bottle of Hermes multivitamins and started struggling with the cap. I wanted to scream at her that this wasn't the time for taking supplements. She had to draw the sword. She popped a lemon chewable in her mouth just as the door flew open and Cirque came back in, flanked by 2 of her business-suited attendants. Well, Cirque sighed, how fast a minute passes. What's your answer, my dear? This, Annabeth said, and she drew her bronze knife. The sorceress stepped back, but her surprise quickly passed. She sneered. Really, little girl? A knife against my magic? Is that wise? Cirque looked back at her attendants, who smiled. They raised their hands as if preparing to cast a spell. Run, I wanted to tell Annabeth, but all I could make were rodent noises. The other guinea pigs squealed in terror and scuttled around the cage. I had the urge to panic and hide too, but I had to think of something. I couldn't stand to lose Annabeth the way I'd lost Tyson. What will Annabeth's makeover be? Cirque mused. Something small and ill-tempered. I know. A shrew. Blue fire coiled from her fingers, curling like serpents around Annabeth. I watched, horror-struck, but nothing happened. Annabeth was still Annabeth, only angrier. She leaped forward and stuck the point of her knife against Cirque's cheek. How about turning me into a panther instead, one that has her claws at your throat? How? Cirque yelped. Annabeth held up my bottle of vitamins from the sorceress to see. Cirque howled in frustration. Curse Hermes and his multivitamins. Those are such a fad, they do nothing for you. Turn Percy back to a human or else, Annabeth said. I can't. Then you asked for it. Cirque's attendant stepped forward, but their mistress said, Get back! She's immune to magic until that cursed vitamin wears off. Annabeth dragged Cirque over to the guinea pig cage, knocked the top off, and poured the rest of the vitamins inside. No! Cirque screamed. I was the first to get a vitamin, but all the other guinea pigs scuttled out too and checked out this new food. With the first nibble, I felt all fiery inside. I gnawed at the vitamin until it stopped looking so huge, and the cage got smaller, and then suddenly, bang, the cage exploded. I was sitting on the floor, human again. Somehow back in my regular clothes, thank the gods, with 6 other guys who all looked disoriented, blinking and shaking wood shavings out of their hair. No, Cirque screamed, you don't understand, those are the worst. One of the men stood up, a huge guy with a long, tangled, pitch-black beard and teeth the same color. He wore mismatched clothes of wool and leather, knee-high boots, and a floppy felt hat. The other men were dressed more simply in breeches and stained white shirts, all of them barefoot. Arg! Bellowed the big man. What's the witch done to me? No, Cirque moaned. Annabeth gasped. I recognize you, Edward Teach, son of Ares. Aye, lass, the big man growled. The most call me Blackbeard. And there's the sorceress that captured us, lads. Run her through, and then I mean to find me a big bowl of celery. Arg! Cirque screamed. She and her attendants ran from the room, chased by the pirates. Annabeth sheathed her knife and glared at me. Thanks, I faltered. I'm really sorry. Before I could figure out how to apologize for being such an idiot, she tackled me with a hug and then pulled away just as quickly. I'm glad you're not a guinea pig. Me too. I hoped my face wasn't as red as it felt. She undid those golden braids in her hair. Come on, seaweed brain, she said. We've got to get away while Cirque's distracted. We ran down the hillside through the terraces, past screaming spa workers and pirates ransacking the resort. Blackbeard's men broke the tiki torches for the luau, threw herbal wraps into the swimming pool, and kicked over tables of sauna towels. I almost felt bad letting the unruly pirates out, but I guess they deserve something more entertaining than the exercise wheel after being cooped up in a cage for 3 centuries. Which ship? Annabeth said as we reached the docks. I looked around desperately. We couldn't very well take our rowboat. We had to get off the island fast, but what else could we use? A sub? A fighter jet? I couldn't pilot any of those things. And then I saw it. There, I said. Annabeth blinked. But I can make it work. How? I couldn't explain. I just somehow knew an old sailing vessel was the best for me. I grabbed Annabeth's hands and pulled her toward the 3-mast ship. Painted on its prow was the name that I would only decipher later, Queen Anne's Revenge. Arg! Blackbeard yelled somewhere behind us. Those scallywags are aboarding me vessel. Get 'em, lads. We'll never get going in time, Annabeth yelled as we climbed aboard. I looked around at the hopeless maze of sail and ropes. The ship was in great condition for a 300-year-old vessel, but it would still take a crew of 50 several hours to get underway. We didn't have several hours. I could see the pirates running down the stairs, waving tiki torches and sticks of celery. I closed my eyes and concentrated on the waves lapping against the hull, the ocean currents, the winds all around. Suddenly, the right word appeared in my mind. Mizzenmast, I yelled. Annabeth looked at me like I was nuts, but in the next second, the air was filled with whistling sounds of ropes being snapped taut, canvases unfurling, and wooden pulleys creaking. Annabeth ducked as a cable flew over her head and wrapped itself around the bowsprit. Percy, how? I didn't have an answer, but I could feel the ship responding to me as if it were part of my body. I willed the sails to rise as easily as if I were flexing my arm. I willed the rudder to turn. The Queen Anne's Revenge launched away from the dock, and by the time the pirates arrived at the water's edge, we were already underway, sailing into the Sea of Monsters. The next chapter is Annabeth Tries to Swim Home. That's chapter 13, and we'll read that next week. I hope you guys tune in so that you can hear me. Have a great day. I miss you all. Bye.